All right, today is Tuesday, December 12th, 2023. I'm Mark, your host, coming to you from Baker's Green Acres here in lovely Marion, Michigan. And, okay, the chat is on. So give us a thumbs up. Let's see if anybody's going to come. I don't know. Maybe we won't. Maybe I'm wearing it out. All right, our show tonight is brought to you by the Anyone Can Farm Tribe Plus. And the tribe put on a class this weekend. Baker's Green Acres did too. And it went pretty good. It was our annual charcuterie class. It was the third one we've put on. We've done homestead hog harvest for, I think this was our 13th year that we did it. Yeah, it was 13th year. First one was in 10. And charcuterie is where you take it the extra mile, so we're not doing the hog slaughter. We're just doing the breakdown and the salting and curing and hamming and baconing and all that stuff, and going through the process of that. And it went really good. It's a 2-day class. We start bright and early on Saturday morning, 9 o'clock, and then we finish up about 4 o'clock Sunday afternoon. And it was a good class. We had a nice group of people. We had 9 people wound up coming. The maximum would have been 12. I understand. It's a balancing act people have. These days, I know that there's problems in personal budgets. There is here. There's things that we'd like to do, but we can't. And so I, like other people, have to decide, okay, what are we going to get the biggest bang for the buck, for our buck? And, I am not at the point where I'm going to offer you something that I don't think is going to benefit you. I'm just not there. I'm not there. I'm not going to sell you snake oil. So in my opinion, offering you a homestead hog harvest class was probably the most beneficial thing that I can do for you at this point. I think, teach you how to butcher an animal. And then the charcuterie class is where we teach you how to take it to the next level of preservation, several different methods of preservation of that meat. Of all the things that I have to give you, I think that is at the top of the list. So at the top of the list. So we did that, and there are 9 more people out there into the world that received this knowledge, and they wanted it, right? So they've taken it, and they're going to do something with it, hopefully. I believe they will. It was the kind of class where the people were kind of leaning forward, and you had a feeling like they have plans. All right. The cleric's with us, Cleric Homestead, and Belva Rockwell is with us. Cool. The title of the show tonight is Finding the Chink in Your Armor. And I hesitated using that word chink. I don't know where the hesitancy came from. I think it's because lately I've been watching a little bit of All in the Family. That was a primetime show when I was growing up. I really enjoyed the show. I didn't like it when it first came out because it was over my head. I was a little kid. But then when it was in reruns and I was in my teens, probably 18 to 20, I got a kick out of Achibunka. And now I really get a kick out of Achibunka. I just think he's too much. And the other day he was having a conversation with Michael Stivic, the meathead, and he said something about Chinese and Japanese. And he says, what's the difference? There's no difference. The Chinks, the Japs, no difference. And so anyway, I decided to title this Finding the Chinks in Your Armor. Finding the Chinks in Your Armor. And I a lot of times come up with topics that I want to expound on because all of a sudden it happens to me. And I have a story to tell you. And when Jill and I and the kids came back this morning from our little outing quite early, I said, you know what we should talk about tonight is finding the chinks in your armor. And I can't see from the screen that I have if that's what Jill has put on here. So can you tell me, Beth, is that what it says? Because she might have said, oh, I'm not going to say chinks, you know? I'm not sure if that's one of those words that I'm not supposed to say, but too bad. A chink in your armor would be if you were back in the days when people wore armor. It's a place where, like, maybe your elbow, where your armor comes together and there's a spot there where there is no protection. And if you get hit with an arrow there, you're going to get hurt or killed or wounded. So that would be a chink in your armor. What happened was, you guys know I did a pretty extensive fencing project, and there was a section of it that I wanted to make it as temporary as I possibly could. And so I just ran a single strand of electric wire, and that's worked pretty good for me in the past. But this particular place, something went wrong. Maybe a deer went through it. That's possible, because I showed you in a video where a deer ran into a brand new barbed wire fence that I just put up, because they're not used to it. The deer aren't used to it, but they get used to it. And so that could have happened. And when I built the fence, I built it with 3 strands of barbed and then a single strand of electric on the top. So they're spaced out evenly, but the top one is a single strand of electric. And it's just I think it's the 14 gauge. It's like 28 thousandths wire, soft wire. It's pliable wire, or well, anyway. And the reason I do that is if there's going to be impact on that fence, generally that top wire, which is the most fragile, will take the most damage. And that's the one that has the electric impulse going through it. So if it gets hit and it falls down, it'll short out, and I won't have an indication on my fencer that it's working. So the fencer that I use, and several of mine have this feature, it has a blinking light on it. And if the fence is working well, like that means that it's not shorted out, it's not grounded out, then you get a periodic blink. And this particular one is a solar, and it gives me a red blink. Boop, boop, boop. Now, the way cows are, when you get them trained, well trained to electric fence, they'll respect that, right? And they're not going to say, I think I'll go and put my nose on that fence today. You know, they don't do that. It's usually something else contacts it. So in effect, you could shut that fence off and those cows won't know, because they're not going to go and test it, right? But evidently what happened, the best I can figure, this has happened a whole bunch of times. So it wasn't a total crisis. You know, it cost me a little sleep last night, but it wasn't a total crisis, because I understand the nature of the animals, and they're not going to wind up, you know, in Arizona. You know, they might wind up on my neighbor's property, but chances are I wasn't going to have a huge problem. But I got home last night. We went and did our milk delivery, dun, 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 raw milk, into Cadillac, and also took the boys to jujitsu. And when we got home, I dropped everybody off at the house and I said, I'm going to go check the cows. I just got a feeling. I got a feeling. And so I went out to where I normally would see them at night, where they like to kind of hang around at night, and they weren't there. And so I went to an alternate spot, and they weren't there. And now I'm in the car, you know, we have a Honda Pilot. I'm in the Honda Pilot and the heat's on. It's blowing outside. It's down around 25 degrees and it's not nice and it's spitting a little bit. And so then I go to another location. Okay, they must be here and they're not there. So I'm like, I knew something was wrong. I knew it. So at this point, I have to come back to the house. I have to get a jacket, get a hat on, get a flashlight, and I got to go out and find them. I got to get eyes on those cows, you know. And so I go out and I'm tracing the fence line, and sure enough, I find that fence on the ground. And before that, I went and looked at the fencer, and the fencer was not blinking, right? And I went over to the fencer and I disconnected it and I turned it back on. It's still not blinking, which indicates that that fence is on the ground and it has totally discharged that fencer. So there's no more battery life in that fencer, not even enough to make it blink. So that tells me that the wire's on the ground or the wire's up against something that's connected to ground. It's grounded out and we got a problem. So I have to go and start walking. And this is like 9:45. And I finally found them. And they were on the other side of the fence about 30 or 40 yards. And they were all laying down. But they're still on my property. They were just not where I wanted them to be on my property. And when they're bedded down like that, they're just chewing their cuds. They're happy. They're not going to go anywhere that night. And so I opted to another strategy is I would start the tractor up really early in the morning and go to where they usually get fed. And I thought that they'll hear it and they'll come up to get fed. The fencing project that I did, I wanted to force them to eat all of the stockpiled hay that was out there. Now, this is property that has not had a cow on it in the 20 years that I've been here. And before that, I don't know how long either. And so there was a lot of dead growth out there. And they went out and they made the best of it, but they didn't like it. You know, they just didn't like it. They want their bale or they want to be on nice grass grazing. And I get that, you know, a little later in the season and they'll be really happy to be eating over there. But right now they're just not happy with it. And so they come to the house and they beller and they want me to bring them a bale. I'm at a place right now where I have enough. I don't have enough hay to feed all the cows that I have, but I have a really nice butcher shop. And I can eliminate some of the cows through the butcher shop, which is starting this Thursday, right? So that part of the story I'll be telling you about in a minute. So I get up early this morning before sun, and I go out and I start the tractor up, and I'm sitting there for a while, and I'm waiting, and I'm waiting, and I'm waiting, and I move some stuff around. I got the headlights on the tractor and stuff. It's like, I don't know, 7:15. And it's still dark here. It was an overcast day. And they still don't come. So I come up to the house and I got in the Pilot again. And I went looking for them. And I found them and they were about a mile away. They just found a field that I don't know who owns it exactly. It's a hay field and it had some stubble on it and they were in there just kind of eating and stuff. So they're about a mile away. And so I called Jill and she came over and the boys came out. They got up and they came out with their motorcycles and we got behind the cows and we just walked them home. It was not a big deal. It worked out pretty good. Because they weren't real hungry, like they had filled up the night before. So it worked out. But then I had to figure out, now what the heck went wrong? How did I how did this get past me, you know? And I started thinking and I thought, well, you know, we had the charcuterie class this weekend. Friday night, I don't recall looking at that blinking light. Nope, I didn't. Why? Because I was prepping for this charcuterie class. And as long as I'm seeing the cows, I'm not checking the technology because there they are. Where that's not, okay, so this is the chink in my armor right here. Here's the chink in my armor. I'm thinking my process is I see the cows, I'm good. I'm not looking to make sure that the fencer is giving me an indication that the fence is still up. I wasn't doing that. And I think that was happening. I'll blame it on anyway. The fact that I was prepping for this class. I have 9 guests coming to my house, and I'm really passionate about conveying something to them through the process. It's not hard to do. I mean, that's not easy to do sometimes. You know, everything has to be right. Like, and it's sort of you have to orchestrate this, and you know, the food for lunch, and you know, the equipment that we need. Did all of the skins come in the mail? You know, do we have sharp knives? Do we have white gloves for people? Do we have aprons? Do we have, you know, on and on it goes. Do we have hot water? Do we have water at all? You know, that happens on farms where your water just goes off, you know. Things happen. Oh, did we get a big storm and did the electricity go off? That happens, you know. So a lot of stuff can happen, and or somebody can cut themselves, right? That can disrupt. I was in a class one time, and me and Jill went to a class to learn. We thought we were going to the next level on cutting, you know, and this chef was giving this class, and we thought he must know more than we do. And he charged a lot of money for us to go. It was a 1-day class, and the son of a gun cut himself. He cut himself bad. And so when he left to get stitched up, the students were kind of, so how about them Red Sox? You know, so that can really disrupt a class. So there's a lot of moving parts on the class, and you really want to or you really need to be focused, and then you have to you have to try and minister to the needs of each person. And you've got 9 people in this time. That takes up a lot of time, a lot of bandwidth. So I can kind of see, or at least I can blame, the reason why I didn't see that fence down was because I was so focused on this class, on doing a good job in the class. So anyway, that's what I'll say. That'll be my testimony. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. And so here it was Monday night. I should have known, like, that fence was good when I left. But I don't know, because I didn't look at it Saturday night. I didn't look at it Sunday night. And I didn't even look at it Monday. Because Monday we were cleaning up from the class on Sunday, because it wind up people were here till 7:30 at night. And it was like, hey, you want us to help you clean up? No. Just go home. We're going to go in the house and watch Oprah, you know. And so, but no, no complaints at all. No complaints at all. It was a very good class, really sharp people. I had a lot of fun. I always know when the class is getting close to the end and I start feeling homesick for the people, like, they're going to be leaving. I wish you guys could stay another day, you know, because we eat together and we yuck it up. You know, we had a lot of fun. Those Dunkins. Ooh. So that was the chink in my armor. Like, and you'd think I would know better. But I think the trick was the solution to this problem is, see, this is what we're always looking for, is solutions, right? The solution is not put a bigger light on it. You know, that's not it. The solution is not punish the people who weren't attentive to their duties. That's not it, right? The solution is, how are we not going to have this happen again? That's the solution. So as we're walking the cows back to the house, and don't get me wrong, it was a nice walk this morning. But let's say last night when I came home and I had this feeling like something's not right. Ah, screw it. I'm going to go in the house. We would have got up this morning, gone out and milked. We would have dug into our work. I'd look over and say, gee, I don't see that. These are my beef cows that I'm talking about. They're not cows, they're steers. And well, they're not there. Oh, they must be in the field next door. And just like, they'd be all right. They could have been in Arizona. They could have. Or they could have actually literally been in the next county. And people would be like, whose cows are these? Like, and they're steers. They've been on pasture. They're not exactly tame. They're not. And if all of a sudden I realize that the cows have gone and I haven't seen them since yesterday afternoon, then it's panic time. So we're walking the cows back this morning, and I had a lot of time to think. And then I had to, after we walked them back to the farm, I had to walk back over there and get the tractor, which was probably a mile. So I had plenty of time to think. And I thought, I need some solutions here. Right. And because I've been doing this a while, it's like, okay, I need to do this. I need to do this. And I need to do this. And it's not like it was years ago when I'd say, well, the cows went through the fence, so there must be some mystical reason why it's happening to me, and poor me, and this always happens to me. And it isn't any of that stuff. It isn't. There's sections of the fence, like Beth, like you probably saw behind your cabin there, that are 3 strands of barbed with a carrier of electric on top, and no cow is going to get through that fence. No cow is going to get through that fence. Yes, I am a free grazer now. But that's not what I had on the part. I needed it to be very temporary. And I needed it to be temporary for reasons. And Lone Star, he knows those reasons. Right? But I'm going to have to circumvent that and just say, well, the hell with it. I'm going to build a regular fence across there. And, oh, well, you can't do that. Well, I did. So, well, you've got to remove it. Okay, I will. Shortly. When I'm 74. I'll remove it then. So that's what I have to do. So that was the chink in my armor. I mean, it's almost like I manufactured in a weak spot, and then I wasn't surprised when that weak spot gave way. I wasn't. Because honestly, when I built the weak spot in, I thought, what's the worst that can happen? Oh, we're having a little problem with the Internet of Things. Imagine that. Hey, so, okay, TB says, don't forget to close chat and touch that thumbs up to help algorithms share it with others. 13 watching, only 5 likes. I'm not sure, man. That could be 13,000 for all I know. I have no way of knowing. This is not my system. We got our nice little family. I'm fine with it. But if you all want to hit the like button, okay. So that was the chink in my armor. And so what is the solutions? And I could go through the solutions, but I think that what we want to do as homesteaders or just process doers is always be thinking about a lot of times I say to you guys, when you have some spare time, build up your defenses or fortify your position. So that's like, okay, let's say you're you're on a wall, let's say, right? Or you're on the wire, they might call it sometimes, if you have a military camp. And so your job is to stand watch. And you're standing here and you're looking out over the fruited plain to make sure the Viet Cong aren't coming your way. You know, you're out there with the binoculars and everything. And you're a two-man team, and your guy is on watch. He's got the binoculars out, and it's your turn to eat or sleep or fill out a report or inspect a weapon system or something like that. It's your job to do that. And then, well, you don't have nothing else to do. I already slept, so okay, fill some sandbags. You know, the guy in charge would say, whoa, what do you mean fill sandbags? Well, we want to fortify this position. So let's say you've got a position and you've got sandbags all around, you know, those sandbags are there. So if somebody shoots at you, and I'm going to just use these terms because it's really easy to understand when you say fortify. Let's say they're going to shoot at you. They'd be shooting at you with an arrow. But if there's a sandbag there and the bullet hits the sandbag, it'll deflect it or catch it or at least slow it down before it hits you. And you might be in better shape, right? But if you put another sandbag in front of it, then the chances of it slowing it down or catching it are even better, right? And you're not doing anything anyway, so you might as well fortify the position. That's why I say that, fortify your position. But as the guy in charge, let's say, of that hole, which is me, I'm in charge of this farm operation. Do I want to fill sandbags and put them behind me? Well, that would be dumb, because unless my own guys are going to shoot at me, that would be dumb. So you gotta say, well, I'm going to have this man fill sandbags, but I think we're going to take fire from there, if any place. It's the closest. That's like 400 yards away. If we're going to take fire, it will be from there, or any kind of accurate aimed fire would be from there. So we're going to build it up on this side, right? So you're plugging what? The chinks in your armor. You're plugging them, right? And you don't want to start plugging the chinks in your armor when the bullets are flying. You want to be doing that before. And if you do that, there's a good feeling. It's like, I've done everything I can on this flank. That's all I can do on this flank. I've done everything I can. There was a time, I'll tell you about another chink in my armor. We had a section of the farm that was not fenced. The rest of the farm was completely fenced, woven wire up 39 inches, and then a strand of barbed wire on top of that. Steel-driven posts, really nice cedar post corners, all the way around the whole 80 acres, except for this one spot. And it was back when I was a rule follower. There was a man that worked for NRCS that said, oh yeah, Lone Star knows who this guy is. Keeps his little mask on, except when he's going to eat a cookie. And he says, well, you probably want to leave this open here, you know, for a wildlife area, so the wildlife can come in onto your farm. And I was like, well, he's the expert. He's the one that went to college. So, okay, I left that section open. Lone Star remembers that guy. So I left it open. Well, every time we had a single cow get away, was through that section of fence that we left open. And it was probably no more than about 60 yards. No more than 60 yards. They would find their way to that, and then they would be. And the last time it happened, the whole group of them got through there. And I saw this post on Facebook, and it says, is anybody missing some cows? And the guy that's giving the post, he lives near me, and I'm saying, oh, some poor sucker. And then he starts giving a description of the cows, and I'd be like, holy smokes, that sounds like my cows. And this is when I had my dairy cows and my beef cows together, which is a bad idea. And the dairy cows led the charge for some reason, and they wound up at my Amish neighbor's house, which is embarrassing as can be. And so I went over there. Hey, how you doing? Yeah, okay, right. Yeah, I'll be back with a trailer. And it was late. I'll be back in the morning. And we had one heck of a time getting those cows to go in my trailer. But we got them in. And then I said, okay, we're going to rebuild that fence. So I talked to one of my kids and my son Joe, and hey, we're going to do this. We need to get this done. And so we kept the cows far away from that place, and then we built that fence. I mean, we built it. It's got steel driven posts, 39-inch woven wire stretched nice and tight with a strand of barbed wire on it, nice and tight. I can't even get through that fence unless I really want to get myself in a bad way. So that was the solution to that particular problem. And so with this thing, I know what the solution is, right? Now, could I risk it again? I could. And then I could say, well, I'll be checking that fencer to make sure I got a light. But am I going to sleep good? I made a video yesterday. This is no joke. You can check. I made a video. I just thought of this. I was down in the chicken house, and I was going through, I was given like an after action report on what I had said maybe in the summertime, that no, chickens are not something to take lightly. They do a lot of work. They give us eggs. They reduce lots of stuff. And what I was doing, oh, I remember, I was shoveling manure out of their house. I was harvesting manure. I wasn't shoveling it. I was harvesting it, right? Because I was going to put it in my compost pile that has beef manure in it, cow manure in it, that is kind of slowed down because of the cold weather. And I wanted to perk it up again. So I put chicken manure in it, and it really perks it up, gets it heating again. And so in that video, I remember saying something about I had a dream that the night before that the cows were out. And it was just a really weird dream. So I sensed it. I definitely sensed it. Like my subconscious picked up that there was a problem before my conscious saw that there was a problem. Like, because when I came home last night, it wasn't my conscious self that said we have a problem. It was my subconscious, and I just said something tells me something's not right here. And when I dug into it, sure enough, they weren't where they were supposed to. And like I said, if I'd have noticed that they were gone at 5 o'clock this afternoon, oh, that would be bad, because who knows where they are then. And the way some of these counties are, when cows wind up, at somebody's property, and they call like the sheriff's department calls county animal control, and they've got some farmer on contract, and he'll go out there with a trailer and some portable gates and get those cows in. This happened to a friend of mine. And then he'll charge you like $500 each animal to get them back. And he's got them. And somehow, I don't know. So I would have a real problem with that if somebody collected up my animals that had gotten away and then like held them ransom. I think I'd have a problem with that. I would have a real problem with that. But anyway, maybe I should get out there with some spray paint and write on the side of the cows, Mark's Cows, and the address and a phone number where they, in case they get away. I don't know. But anyway, it could be a real problem. That happened to Adrian Norris. His cows got out, and livestock's like that. When you leave, they're just waiting for you to leave. They're organized. They're organized. They are organized. It always happens that way. You come home and a cow is standing in the driveway. It's like, oh, that's nice. 11 o'clock at night. See, and this doesn't happen to me now, this stage of the game. My farm operation is really uptight, and because I want it that way, I want to come home and find that every animal is where I left it. I really work hard to do that. So some of it has come with experience. If I see the pigs acting a certain way, I know that the electric fence isn't on, and then I pretty much know why it's not on. They've found some material, some boards or something, and they put it over the fence, and they're going to do it so they can jump over as soon as I leave. And so I just take the boards and I burn them, and then I do a count of the inhabitants, make sure it's still there. So at this stage of the game, if animals are going to get out, there's usually some indications that that's going to happen if I'm on my toes. And for my purposes tonight in telling you this, look for those chinks in your armor and make sure that you've put something in place so that you don't find out at the wrong time. And that's part of our thing as homesteaders, that part of our responsibilities is to be scanning for problem areas. That's going to be a problem. And this is where we sometimes like to have conversations about safety and children on the homestead. We have a neighbor. I don't know them, right? They moved here from downstate, and I don't even know what they look like. They're several miles from me, and they set up a big cattle operation. And I think he had probably grown up on one and then gone to work in town at some big deal and made a lot of money. And so they moved out to set up a cattle operation. And they had a son that was on a four-wheeler, and he was riding inside of a building, and he got somehow trapped in between the wall and the four-wheeler and died. And just totally a tragic thing, totally tragic. Now, could they have prevented that? I don't know. I let my kids go and sit on deer stands, or go hunting in the woods with high-powered rifles. If something happened, could it have been prevented? Yeah, I could just let them sit on the couch and play patty cakes. Yeah, that would prevent it from happening, but that would prevent a lot of other things from happening. Things happen, but certain things I am pretty careful about, like the spear on the bale spear on the front of the tractor. I will never leave that thing in a position where some kid riding a bike could get that in the face, in the eye socket sticking out the back of his head. I will never do that. It doesn't matter if I'm just going to, for 1 second, go in the house and come back out. I will point that thing so it's touching the ground. I do not want that to happen. There's just certain things. In our classes, I always brief people on, drawing the knife towards them in a butcher's draw, it's called, that if they slip off the table, they could stick it in their leg. They could stick it in their femoral artery. They could yank it out of there, and they could bleed out in a couple of minutes. So I always brief that. It's like, is that going to prevent it from happening? Maybe. But if I don't brief it, then it's like, I should have said something, because I have a friend, or had a friend out in Montana, and his dad stuck himself in the thigh, right up by the groin, just quick. And they couldn't stop the blood, and he died. He died in like 5 minutes. Got himself right in the femoral artery, cut it right off. Even if the kid was a surgeon and got in there, he would have really had to work at it to get that stopped. But He didn't get it, and his father died. Young guy too. He was a sheriff's deputy. Um, so that is fixing the chinks in your armor too, because your children and your spouse and the people that come and visit your farm, you got to make sure that they're safe. You don't want them getting hurt. So you're always looking for problem areas and getting those areas. Let them go. Don't let them go. It's and here's a great example of a guy that's got a lot of experience doing it. But what did I do? I set myself up for this. It was a calculated risk. And, turns out I was right. Yeah, it was a weak spot, but it didn't wind up being but it could have. It could have. Like if those things had wound up in the next county over on some just regular landowners, homeowners front yard, that could have been a pretty tough situation. And actually what happens if it started going through my mind last night as I'm looking for them. What if they get out in the road and somebody runs into one of them? I'm responsible for that. It's my animal. I'm charged with keeping that animal in. I'm going to look like some sort of dummy if I can't even keep beef cows in, So that's what I thought I would talk about. And maybe if I tell you guys that you really need to be looking for those chinks in your armor, those chinks in your fortification, those gaps in your wall, when you see one, maybe you'll think, you know what? I'm not going to let that go. I'm going to fix that right now. And that way you won't have some kid that gets a shock or some kid that stumbles into a bee's nest that you knew it was there, but you didn't want to take care of it because you're just doing something else. And some kid gets stung really bad and, their tongue swells up and, yeah. So I thought I'd give that brief. We have a situation where people get hurt on farms, and they're bad situations. They can be really bad. People need to be talking to each other all the time about safety, about children running equipment. There's a lot of power there, and kids a lot of times really want to do it because dad does it. Okay, but make sure the other kids aren't around, chainsaws, guns, knives, electricity, high dosage electricity, dangerous equipment, animals, keeping a bull on your farm. I've told you, hey, don't do that. Don't do that. And then I turn around and I do it. And I kind of feel bad about that, Sean, because you called me on that. And I appreciate it. Sean Wise, not Sean Kelly, but and you're right. I did that. And I shouldn't make light of that if I tell you guys, hey, you don't want to do that. But then I do it. Sometimes I will say, yeah, but I'm experienced and I know what I'm doing, that bull. We have a friend, and she's friends with my wife, and she's got 3 kids, and they're like 5, 7, and 9. And as soon as she pulls in the driveway, those doors fling open and those kids are just on fire. They're every which way, they just really enjoy this farm, climbing trees and, swinging on the rope swing and playing with the emotional support goats and all kinds of stuff. They have a good time. One time we were standing in the butcher shop and I hear a knock on the door on the outside that faces where the milk cows are. And the bull was in there with them. So these 3 little kids were out there looking at the cows, and my bull was right there. And he's a surly some gun. And I let them in. I'm like, wow, you could have been an ink spot on the ground out there. And I don't know why he didn't, because he's not nice to people. And these kids, they're not farm kids, so they didn't realize that his behavior was, now how they got in there, like they went under an electric fence to get in there. And I think one of the principles that we go by in the military, which really helps too, and I'll pass this on now, and then I'm going to go on to something else. If something happens on this farm, it's my responsibility. So if one of my kids does something dumb, that's me. That's me. The buck stops here. I'm the one that takes it. So one thing I cannot do is say, well, yeah, it was his fault. I can't. And like I tongue in cheek said, well, yeah, it's because of the class we had this weekend. You know, I'm doing that tongue in cheek. There's no way that those cows should have gotten out, not with somebody with my experience and intellect and good looks. That should not have happened. That should not have happened. Right. And it did. And I had to go to my wife and kids this morning and say, thanks for helping me out. That was my fault. Because it was. I took a calculated risk. I thought, we'll make it till they'll be out there. They'll clean up that grass over on the new property. And then we'll have them on bales in about a month. And then we'll knock a bunch of them off. It'll be fine, But it wasn't. So that is my fault. And that's a good thing to do as the guy that's going to take the spears finally. I'm the one that's going to say, hey, I don't want to see that again. I do not want to see that. So I went out in the shop the other day, and my son Jim is really getting into small engines and small engine related things, motorcycles, snowmobiles. He's the one that put those wheels on his snowmobile because he wants to use it when there's no snow, right? And it worked out pretty good. But he had a gas tank that he'd taken off of a 5 horsepower Briggs and Stratton engine, and he set it down right underneath the bench grinder. So when you go to the bench grinder and you're going to shape a piece of metal, you have all these sparks coming off, and if somebody had used that, if he had used it, it would have gone right on that tank, and the possibility of one spark getting into that tank, it's there. And so I had to say, hey, come over here. Look at this. What can happen here? I don't know. I said, that's gasoline. These sparks will set it off. And I've even with some of my older kids, they said, well, I don't think it would. And I said, I'll show you. And I put gasoline on a Kleenex or something, and then hold it underneath and put a piece of steel on that, and it will light it right off. It'll take right off, right? So if you had a lot of fuel on the floor, let's say, you could have a bad situation in a hurry. So I'm the one that's responsible to go down there and put eyes on the situation and say, there's not a lineup here of something bad going to happen, right? I am the one that has to do the walk around at night and make sure all the doors are closed when it's extremely cold. No, I can't rely on my kids to do that. I can't say, hey, you didn't shut that off last night. I can't. That's my responsibility at the end of the day. So if I know I'm going to take the arrows at the end of the day, the spears, I'm going to bring an employee or one of my children, same thing, over and say, this is why we do it this way. And then look at them and get a feel for, am I getting through? Am I getting through to this kid? Like, do you understand what I'm saying here? And generally I can say, yeah, I get, I get it. Okay. Well, let's not do this anymore. All right. Let's not do this. Sometimes they're not safety issues. Like when I find a socket set out in the field, that's not a safety issue, but it's still an issue that I don't want happening anyway, and that's just training with kids. All right. So did I cover what I wanted? I think so. I think so. We got something from the Barn Geek here. Great advice. I've been there. I had a bull that got out in the middle of the night, snack on the neighbor's corn, and get back in before morning. We never knew until the neighbor informed us. Must have been one of them special operations bulls. Yeah. Well, Old Endeavor, I'm going to knock him down Thursday. It's supposed to be 40 degrees out, and we have a system. All right. See, this is the thing too. Like butchering a big bull like that, that's really strong, got a really hard head on him. And if a person were to not be prepared for what can happen when you shoot a bull and wound it, but I am prepared. And so I am going to use an automatic rifle. And I've done it before, like many times. So I know that a 5.56 millimeter will work just fine. And the rifle that I'm going to use, I can get a second or third shot on them, like right now, just pulling the trigger. So the way that goes for me, I'll just brief you on this, is when I bring hay in to the cows, the milk cows, he's in with them and he's there to impregnate them. That's his whole function in life. But he likes to eat and he doesn't like the tractor. He doesn't like the tractor. He doesn't like me either. But when I go in with the tractor, he just has a blast button that with his head, the bucket on it. If I'm carrying a bale, he'll be whacking that thing. Boom, 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 until I drop it in the bale feeder. Until I drop it in the bale feeder, he's beating the snot out of it. So when I pull over there with the tractor, he's going to come over and he's going to do his, paw on the ground and stuff. I will have a rifle right on the tractor. I'll be sitting on the tractor with it running, and I'll wait until he presents himself properly, and I'll just do dun, dun, dun. I'll probably shoot him 3 times, actually. So Sean's been using a CCI Game Point 22 mag for beef. So far, so good, up to 1,400 pounds. Yep. I'm going to play it safe, brother. Like the last couple of beef, the steers that I have down, the beef cows, they're big, way bigger than Endeavor. But Endeavor is an intact male. And so it's a whole different thing in my experience. Like you can use a big gun on him, like a 30 caliber, like a 308 or something and go in one side and come right out the back. And that's not going to put him down. I have seen that happen. I've actually done that. So the 5.56, it just doesn't, it's going to go in and stop. And I have enough rounds that I can quick follow up. And then I won't tear his head up too bad. There's still a lot of meat there. The reason I'm not going to use my 22 mag is because I can't get a follow-up shot quick enough. Usually what happens when you shoot them and they don't drop, they turn away. They turn away from you. And so you wind up shooting them in the back of the head. And the 22 mag, I don't think it's got the ponies to do it. I'm just not gonna, whenever I'm butchering something, like Devin's famous for that, telling me what I should use. But I go through the list of guns that I have. And when I get to a certain one, I say, for him, yes. And I don't always go overboard. Like I'm not going to use a 30 caliber on him. I have a 30 M1, straight walled 30 M1. And when I stopped at that one, I thought maybe that'll be good enough. But then I was like, no, it just doesn't have the velocity to break through that skull of his. Right. I mean, it does. But for some reason, I just don't gut check with it. Not with him. He's too big. And I think the 5.56 will just do a better job. Barn Geek, we used a 30 cal military surplus rifle on a steer last year. It did not work. Switched to the 9mm and that did. Wow. Military surplus rifle. Was it a 30-06, 30-06? See, the military ammunition is called military ball ammo, and it's not even the same as just, well, how do I put this? There's ball ammunition that you can buy that they make it ball ammunition. That means it's just it's a copper jacketed, completely jacketed, usually a spear point lead bullet, right? And they make ball ammo for target shooters, but then they make ball ammo for military specs. And you would think, oh, military, that must be deadly. Actually, no, it's less deadly. It's designed so that it will go in and make a consistent hole all the way through the human target. A hunting bullet is designed to go in and mushroom or spread out. And that way you're transferring all the energy into the game animal that you're shooting. So hunting bullets are way more deadly than ball ammo, military ball. BALL. Yeah. It's like a big game of tag. Huh. All right, Barn Geek. Getcha. Yeah. Well, I don't need to rethink it. I know that's what I'm going to do. I've shot bulls before, and I think like a double tap, 2 shots, ding, ding, like that. That will be what will work real good on Endeavor. I don't want any problems with him. I want him down as soon as I shoot him. And these, AR type style rifles, they just cycle real quick and they shoot good. So very accurate. So that's what I'm going to do. Hey, I've been hearing lots of things. All right. And I brought up the other day at the class, hey, did anybody see that interview between Tucker Carlson and Alex Jones? And people said, yes, I saw that. I would recommend that you listen to it. All right. It was a little bit long, but I would just recommend it, and not for the reasons that they're presenting. A lot of times with guys like that have such a footprint, like a Tucker Carlson, I like listening to them, and the good, reliable, and nice American part of me wants to believe that Tucker's our guy. He's a good guy. But then there's the part of me that says, wait a minute, the internet, they only let people on the internet that are saying what they want them to say. So it's one or the other. And I don't know which one it is. Oh, yeah, you can trust old Tucker Carlson. Oh, well, okay. Yeah, well, after all, Fox News fired him. Well, you could kind of see where that might be to just give him the resume entry that would make me believe in him. You can see that. This is quite the game that's being played out before us. But anyway, I saw that, and I also saw one where Joe Rogan interviewed old Alex Jones. So they're bringing old Alex back, and he's got a lot of things to say. And he was the guy that actually predicted 9/11. And he said, well, I didn't predict it. They were saying they were going to do it. They were saying it was going to happen. And he says, just like they're saying now that they're going to, there's going to be a massive cyber attack, and there's going to be a grid down scenario, possibly like localized, areas of grid down. To shut the entire grid down across the United States, that takes some doing. That grid, people think that it's a very fragile grid. Not exactly true. It's been built a piece at a time, but American engineering is really good. It really is good. That's why we fly airplanes off of carrier decks and the Chinese don't, right? It's because American engineering is really good and Chinese engineering is not. They're good copiers, but they haven't figured out how to copy our metallurgy enough to build a tailhook strong enough to catch a jet that's coming back on the deck. But I am hearing that. I'm hearing that different places here and there. There's another guy that I listen to. His name is Patrick David Bett, and he's not loved by another guy I listen to by the name of Owen Benjamin. And I can't line up behind any of these guys completely, but I certainly can't line up behind any of the news anchors at all, any of the news like NBC or CBS or any of those. I can't. None of them. They all sound like baloney, to me, like it's propaganda. So you're trying to figure out what's going on in the world by listening to other people who are commentators and have a different point of view, and none of them represent me completely, but some of them I like better than others. I happen to like Patrick David Bett. I happen to like him. I don't know. Something tells me either he's a really good BS artist or he sounds like a genuine guy. I could be totally wrong. I could be completely wrong. And I know that. But you listen to these interviews, and one consistent thing that they are saying is cyber attack, partial grid down. I keep hearing it. So then supposedly there was a movie that came out that was produced by our own Barack and Michael Obama. Obama. And I didn't catch the name of it, but it opened up last week. Somebody will tell me here what that. But anyway, the gist of it was a grid down scenario in, I think, New York, New Jersey area. And it's the movie about that. And I haven't seen it. Maybe I will see it at some point. We don't have Netflix, though, so maybe I won't. I don't know. But I am hearing that. So, I mean, our show isn't exactly a prepper type show, although I do maintain that in the homesteading business, we're constantly prepping for the next thing, always prepping for the next thing. And if the next thing is some sort of additional attack against the United States, against us, that it seems like that's what it would be. Like before the whole COVID thing, if you brought up that there was an episode of The Simpsons where there was this mysterious virus that came from China, if you brought that up, people would say, I don't want to hear. But now that we've lived through it, well, maybe it's time to start listening to what is being said, because these guys don't exactly hide what their agenda is, what they want to do. You will own nothing and you will like it. The 15-minute cities, all that stuff. Like, all right, so we all get, everybody on this channel that's listening says, oh yeah, I'm with you, man. I get it. I know that there's some BS going on. So we all know. Well, we should all just call our congressman and then our senator. He'll get something done. Yeah, right. Sure. There's really nothing you can do if that storm is coming, except prepare to take the rain, prepare to take the wind, prepare to take it. That's all you can do. That's what you can do. That's the most that you can do. So we had this discussion this weekend. All right, David Duncan's with us because he was in this class, and we had this discussion. Okay, you have a tendency to start talking. Oh yeah, Joe Biden. He's did this, and yeah, but look at what Trump did, and he did this, and the vaccine did this, and 9/11, and Timothy McVeigh, and we're talking about all this stuff. But it doesn't change anything if we all agree on everything that we got a bunch of dirty, rotten bastards that are trying to kill us. Just because we know it, we can't go back and write that, but we can prepare for the next onslaught, right? And it's sort of like fixing the chinks in your armor. It's like, well, if I was them, what would I do? How can you affect the most amount of people with the biggest bang for the least buck? Like 9/11, they didn't the Wu flu, they didn't have a lot invested in that. There was some Hollywood work, and there was some network news people work on that, and but I don't think they had to invest a lot of money. They just played on the psyche of America, and but I don't know if they got done what they wanted to get done, but I think people are kind of like waiting, they're waiting for the next thing. So I don't know, I've just had this feeling lately, like I need to just get some stuff taken care of and dig in and, start thinking where my vulnerabilities are as far as that goes. So I just thought I had to pass that on. I couldn't really have, a massive audience, like 14,000 people. Is that what that says? And not say, hey, I think there's a bit of a storm on the horizon. And that's, to put it lightly. It seems like there's quite the storm on the horizon. So let me back up here and see what people are saying. It's like a one-sided conversation. All right. Michelle Obama's movie is Leave the World Behind. Watched it last night. I think someone may have tipped their hand. Well, on Valuetainment, that Patrick David bet, the name of his thing is Valuetainment. I recommend him. I think me and him are mates, right? One of the guys that's on his show, he's an ex-Air Force guy. His name is Vinny. He's from New York, right? And he says, hey, he says, I don't get it. It's like it's their religion. They got to tell you what they're going to do before they do it. And I've heard that for a long time. I've heard it for a long time. And if you look back, you can see remnants of that throughout our recent history. They do it all the time. So if they're saying that's what's going to happen, let's get some preps in place. So what would that mean if there was a grid down situation? Oh, no electricity? Your well pumps are going to have a problem, right? So what are you going to do? Because what do you really need? You got to have water. If you can have one room in your house that you can heat, you're good. If you've got enough calories just to make it, you're good. If you know how to butcher now, because you've been to one of our classes, if you have to butcher your Great Pyrenees dog, you can eat off that for several days. All right. Sean says that, David, that was a good movie. It did a great job of demonstrating normalcy bias. That tanker is getting closer. Maybe we should move. Nah, it's got to turn, right? Tanker. You got me, Sean. I'm not tracking, brother. That tanker. Oh, maybe that was in the movie. Was there a tanker situation? I haven't seen it. Okay. So that was just a bit of a word of caution, little preps. Okay, it's line from the movie. All right. Again, we had a great class this weekend. I think we every time we do a class like that, we kind of seems to be like a tying of people. They tie in together. And they tie in with other classes, and the culmination of that is the Tribe Day. A lot of alumni from our classes come to Tribe Day, and who knows? At some point, they may outlaw that type of thing. You guys can't be getting together. You're going to be all catching COVID or something. So there it is. I'm done with this show for tonight. We do not have a consulting call tomorrow night. I will give you a heads up. Tribe Plus registration is going to open back up. We're changing things around a little bit. We at one point thought that giving access to a lot of videos, how-to videos, would be something that people would find of value, but very few of our videos were taken advantage of Tribe Plus members. But what did get used was access to me via the consulting call. So we're gonna sharpen the point, fortify the position on the consulting call. We're doing it via Zoom, and I think it's really effective if you come to the Zoom call, because we're face to face. A person can ask a question, and then everybody can listen to the response, and then we can have a little back and forth. And then sometimes there are people on the Zoom call that know more about a subject or can augment. I mean, who knows more about homesteading than me, right? So there'll be some people that can just fill in some of the quiet time, David Duncan, if you know what I mean. So that's been really good, and I'm kicking around an idea of doing weekend classes, like Saturday classes, just a day-long class. So 9 to 5, right? And we'll pick a subject. And this is what Tribe Plus before showed me. So we put out these videos, really nice videos, starred me, and I would show how to do something. People didn't really respond to it. It's like they didn't like it or couldn't handle the awesomeness, probably. And so what we learned from that was we just want to be less awesome. So we need to be probably in person. And that makes total sense to me. Really, it makes total sense to me. Like, if I could go and work with the Bearded Butchers for a week, I would jump on that so fast. But watching the videos, it just doesn't. I don't know. I just don't get the same. I do watch them. I think they're excellent. I highly recommend them. I don't know them. I think they're in Ohio, but I think they do a really good job. But the people, I think, who would relate to me would probably come for an in-person class. So let's say we were going to have an in-person class on anything. Be your own bearded butcher. Hey, Inga, how you doing? On, let's say, corner post, how to build a corner post or an H post, fencing, because fencing is really important. It can't be that, I can't overstate that. Fencing is really important, especially when you go on long walks in the morning looking for your cows. That's how. And let's say we were going to give a class on that, and it would start at 9, lunch break. I don't think we would provide lunch because I would have to tax my wife to do that. I think it would be just bring box lunch, sack lunch, and then after lunch we finish up. And I would do these. So you might be saying, well, why would you do something like that? Well, if I'm going to provide value and you need to know how to do one of these things, you would be required to compensate me in camels. I don't know, if you have some children that you don't want, you know, gold, ammunition, antique 22s, nice fishing equipment, baby pigs, something, dollars, whatever. I'd take that. But we'd set a price on it and make it reasonable, but also make it to where I feel like, okay, if I get 10 people want to come and learn how to do this, when it's over, I just got a new roof for some more facilities here on this farm, right? I'm not going to take it and buy beer and lottery tickets. I'm going to invest it back into this property. So in a lot of ways, you could think that if I took a fencing class at Baker's Green Acres one day and gave Mark X amount of dollars to do it, I don't know how much it would be. That's what I would know. What would people tolerate for a day trip like that, a day class? But I'm investing in that farm, and that farm is where I want to go. I want to do what that guy's doing. That's what I want. I want to do what he's doing right there, right there, right there. So that would be a good place to invest your money. So I think that would be good. So let's say we had 12 subjects, and they wouldn't always have to be my subjects. It could be Aaron's subjects, post and beam building. I can do some of it, but he knows how to do it. So he could conduct the class, and we would compensate him so that he could do build into his farm. I'm thinking about doing that, and I think we could probably afford to do, a few, probably like 10. There's definitely, and so I'm wondering how that would settle with you. Yeah, class on how to load your trailer with lost cows. Yeah, building a hog catch pen specifically tailored for Isaiah. I'm tired of finding my cows on the neighbor's lost pets page. Call the trailer fence jumpers anonymous. So I wonder how that would go. And I just think that it's doable. And, honestly, for me, when I work here 7 days a week and I don't have a lot of contact, I really don't mind having people roll in the driveway. I really don't. I like to have, I'm a social person. Okay. I'm a social person. So I'm thinking about doing that, but just 1 day classes. And I think that does a lot of damage to the realm that we're trying to, overtake by getting people trained up on how to survive, and we got to twist their arms here. Come learn how to survive. There's a lot of things we could do. I know a guy right now. I don't know him, but they're buying milk from us. But he was a small arms instructor in the Air Force, and those guys. He's got a little business going on firearm instruction. So, there's several, courses of study that he can teach, and we could do it on the farm. And I'd be up for that. I think. I mean, shooting is definitely a farm skill that needs to be mastered. And, I did a lot of it when I was in the service, and not so much when I've gotten out, only when I've needed to, but maybe that could be a good thing. But I think fence building, I think a composting class would be good. I think a biochar class would be good. I think chicken processing would be good, which we kind of do that with our 1 day class, pasture poultry class. I think chicken tractor building would be good, where we could actually build one, a day long build, Um, what else could we do? Grazing. Grazing is such a cool subject. It really needs to be almost a 2-day subject. Um, Goat processing, goats as emotional support animals, Chappaquiddick swimming techniques. Yes, that would be good. When I returned, Mary Jo and the cow were gone. See, I'm from there. So, see what you think. Think that through a little bit and spit some comments back to me at some point if you would, because I think that would really work. I think that would be a good thing to do. Okay, see, because not everybody can commit to a 2-day class, and I understand that. I totally get that, but a shorter class would be good. Even like a meat cutting class, a very short 1-day thing, I think would be a good one. And I know what we could do. We could have several primals that we would break down into subprimals and really go for it. And I think that would be good. And you could almost use them as add-ons to the charcuterie class and the homestead hog harvest class. I think at some point we're going to be building like a training record for people. It would be the Homesteader's Guide training record extraordinaire, certified Baker's Green Acres, MOBGA certified. And if you have it all filled in, you'll be a special boy. All right, I got to go. Have a good night, y'all. And remember, anyone can farm, and now is the time to get after it. Scrum.